Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to you, wherever you are today. Welcome everybody to today's webinar entitled How to Escape the Agility Trap in Digital Transformation. My name is John Webster. I'm the CMO of Bizagi. It's my pleasure to be your host for today's session. Today we'll be talking about what we all on this call know to be an incredibly important topic for businesses in 2016, digital transformation. So on today's webinar, we're going to be sharing with you some exciting new insights into the status of digital transformation programs around the globe, along with practical advice on how to overcome the challenges of transformation and to avoid the most common pitfalls. So let me start by introducing our guest speaker. Excuse me. Welcome to John Rymer, VP and Principal Analyst of Forrester Research. John has worked as an industry analyst excuse me, for more than 20 years, starting in 1989. He won't thank me for saying. His industry experience includes a stint as Vice President of Product Marketing for Iona Technologies, where he gained first-hand experience in creating and executing marketing strategies. And my request to you, the audience, is to try and make this session as interactive as possible. So if you have any questions, please share them with us through the live chat window, which is in your console, as you'll see. We'll answer as many questions as we can in the Q&A session at the end. And for those questions we don't get to, I'll personally ensure you receive a response to those questions after the webinar closes out. And of course, as you know, the webinar will be available on demand after today, and you'll all receive a copy of the slides too. So a few words first on Bizagi, to help those of you who don't know Bizagi, to help you understand why we have such a credible voice in today's topics related to digital transformation. Bizagi offers a digital business platform that enables the digital process automation programs of over 500 enterprises worldwide. We're headquartered in the UK. We have operations across North America, Europe, and Latin America now. And many of you will probably know us from our continued leadership position in the BPM space, but less of you may understand how our platform is being used for a wider goal than pure BPM. And that's really helping companies achieve their digital transformation goals. And we do this by wrapping their legacy systems with an agile process-centric application layer that's focused on digitizing their operations. And that's quite a wordy sentence, but we'll explore what this means concretely over the next 45 minutes or so. Here you can see a selection of some of our customers, over 500 customers worldwide that we work with, and a few of our key global partners too. One of the key takeaways you'll see here that there's a broad range of industries represented. And you should also note that a lot of these companies represent what you may call incumbent players, i.e. they're large, established companies who, by definition, are often those that feel most keenly the challenge represented by younger, born digital agile competitors. And that's important to note in relation to the content we'll be sharing later today. So hopefully that's given you a very quick base understanding of Bizagi and our work on major transformation programs around the world. Okay, so let's take a moment, step back a little bit, and look at the bigger picture. The mission is clear. Business leaders in companies like yours are tasked with enabling rapid digital transformation. And they need to do this fast to defend against new and disruptive competition. So what does this actually mean in practice to you? Well, it means that your customer experience needs to be overhauled. It means that you need to introduce agility into your operating models. You need to increase efficiency as well as productivity. And all the while while you're doing that, you also need to protect and, of course, grow profit margins. But the more organizations we speak to, the more we hear the stark reality. And that is that digital transformation can be hard. It can be very hard. Just using some freely available statistics here, 70% of all transformation projects fail. And 4 in 10 current leaders across every industry will be displaced in the next 5 years. In the next 5 years. Sobering. And this raises 2 incredibly important questions for companies and for ourselves. Why are businesses struggling with transformation? And how can you avoid the most common pitfalls when trying to go digital? To answer these questions, we commissioned a study of over 1,000 large businesses around the world, around US, around EMEA, and around LATAM. And our aim really was to find new insights into strategies that have been undertaken for successful transformation. So in the slides that follow, I'll guide you through the research findings and we'll highlight some of the most important takeaways as we go. After that, our guest, John Rymer, will reveal some of Forrester's top insights into these areas. And as a reminder to you, any questions that come to mind while we're presenting, please do share them in the chat window because we want to make this session as interactive as possible. And we'll try and put them to John and myself, of course, throughout the webinar, but especially at the end when we have some time for Q&A. So in doing this research, what were we hoping to discover? Well, we identified a few key questions that inspired the planning stage of our research. And you can see those questions here. How are large businesses experiencing change? What are the common drivers of digital transformation? When and where are challenges most likely to appear? And what can technology companies like Bizagi do to help customers solve transformational challenges? The result was a report. We launched this recently. We called it the Agility Trap. And we'll provide the full report to you after this webinar closes out. But what exactly is an agility trap? Well, the agility trap is a concept we came up with which really describes, of course, the findings of the research, and it really describes the event where businesses seeking rapid digital transformation are running fast but getting stuck in large part due to organizational or technological complexity. So as we step through the highlights of the research today, I'm going to explore 5 topics. Each describes an important area of the research which we think you'll find valuable. So we'll look at everything from the level of transformation programs taking place around the world today to the top success factors that we see in transformation initiatives. So let's get going. Perhaps one of the most important points about digital transformation in 2016 really is the sheer scale of change underway. This is not a theoretical issue about some kind of desired future state. Companies are in the midst of digital transformation today, and the concerns are real. So, to look at the stats, 32% of businesses describe high levels of live projects in the area of digital transformation, and a further 52% stated that they have started but have moderate levels of transformational projects underway, so the vast majority of respondents. The key takeaway here, however, is the amount of project turmoil reported. The research reveals that digital transformation is currently a significant strategic challenge for 9 in 10 businesses, almost 9 in 10 businesses, around 87%. So at this point, let's take an immediate step back, an immediate break, and I think it's time for our first audience polling questions. This is when you, the audience, will actually submit your answers. We'd love to know how your programs are going. So the question, what is the level of digital transformation activity in your organization? And you'll have to kind of use your own kind of gut feeling in terms of the way in which we quantify these answers. But you'll see the answers in front of you, and if you can choose one right now, that would be great. Is it A, low levels of digital initiatives are underway? Is it B, moderate levels, you're seeing this take off within your organization? Or is it C, is your organization already far down the line and showing high levels of digital transformation programs underway? Low, moderate, or high? If we can see the answers at the moment. I'm not seeing the answers on my screen, but I believe
it's predominantly moderate. It's predominantly moderate, 80%.
Yeah. There we go.
Here comes the high level.
Okay, it's moving around. And to tell, hopefully the audience can see the answer, but just in case you don't, low levels, 14%, high levels, 14%, and the clear winner, moderate levels of digital transformation at 71%. So most of the audience is saying there's a moderate level, in fact almost, well, over 2/3. And actually, if you look at our research, that kind of mirrors our research in a way. We actually had a moderate level at 52, and as you can see on the screen, previous to this research, 32 at high. So it's good to know, maybe a self-selecting pool of respondents there. People on the call are obviously the people who have this in mind, and therefore, I'm sure have moderate levels of transformation underway. John, do you have any response to this? Is this what you expected to see?
Well, yes, I think it supports your point, John, that these digital transformations are just very difficult. And so generally when I see an organization that tackles all of the dimensions of digital transformation, it is an organization that's in crisis. And of course, a lot of people are not in crisis. Hopefully not yet, but it is difficult, to your point, and so people tend to take a more measured approach. Interesting that low levels of digital initiatives are actually a low reading. I think that indicates that supports your point that this is urgent.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that people
indeed.
need to tackle it. But they're trying to tackle it in a measured way to knock down the risk.
Yeah, and I think we, in our research, and again, for the audience members, you'll receive the full copy of this research after the webinar. I think it showed that the proportion of companies which were showing a high level, or let's say those companies that were showing a high level of digital transformation, were mapped to those economies with the largest economies, if you like. So the most developed economies had the highest levels of digital transformation underway. So it'll be interesting to see the split of attendees on this call. Let's keep moving forward. Thank you for that, John. So let's keep moving forward. A lot of content to cover. So we'll dip back in and out into audience polling questions in a moment. The second area of the 5, urgency. So we've identified that digital transformation is, of course, a big discussion point for businesses everywhere. But why? Why is it? What is driving it, and why the urgency? Well, our research indicated that customer expectation was the most important driver, and that might not be much of a surprise to most of you. 81% think customer expectation is increasing the pace of change in their industry. And that's really why so many are talking about thinking customer first, as they may call it, and being customer-led. But for us, this isn't just the usual platitudes about being focused on the customer, etc., that we've heard managers talk about for many, many years. This is more than that. Today, a digital savvy consumer is taking organizations on a journey that the organization has very little control over, and nor do they know the ultimate destination. So it's a massive shift of power to the customer, and it's a huge injection of ambiguity. And businesses need to ensure they can react, of course. And for larger business, we believe this is much easier said than done, right? The incumbents. And it really does involve a fundamental shift in the way an organization works. But I think one thing is clear from the report, that progress in this area is recognized as being vital. We found that 73% agree that failure to respond quickly to transformation will result in commercial failure. So this is an existential challenge for the company. So we're coming in and out of audience polling questions to keep you guys on your toes. The second question now, thinking about this customer first and how it's an interesting challenge for many incumbent businesses. Our second audience polling question is this: to what extent does your organization think customer first? So how customer-centric are you? And now, please be honest, okay? Please be honest. So, number 1, or A, as you can see on the screen, are you more focused truly on internal efficiency programs than customer-defined, customer-centric programs? Number 2, is marketing really the ones that are driving customer centricity? Are they really the only ones that are customer-driven? And the third option here, is your organization fully driven by what your customers want? So do you think your customer view and the customer centricity is at the heart of everything you do? So again, I'll give you a few more seconds to answer that question. We've got a kind of even split here. A lot of the people on the call, I'd actually be interested to look back at the roles of the people on the call as well.
Right.
We have a lot of people focused on internal process efficiency, and I know a lot of the deployment of the kind of technology we'll be speaking about today may have started in functions looking at squeezing more efficiency from processes, but I do believe that's changing. And if you look at the third row here, companies that are fully believe themselves to be fully driven by the customer, certainly these kind of technologies are looking now not in terms of efficiency improvements solely or cost containment solely, but really about agile operations to better meet the needs and changing needs of customers. So I'm not surprised that we're seeing a move from answer A to answer C when we do this kind of surveying. John, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm with you. I agree with you. 36% fully driven by what our customers want is very, very encouraging. That's over a third, and we're in this as an industry, we're really we're really just starting down this digital transformation, path, this trend. Focused on internal process efficiency doesn't surprise me either. As the largest group, there's tension here that there's tension here that I think you highlighted. You want to focus on the internal operations that enable you to provide fantastic customer experiences. And that's not everything you do. That's not all of your operations. You have to prioritize those operations. But at the same time, you're trying to free up capital. You're trying to free up budget to invest in new initiatives. And so, I think that the way to resolve that is focus on the operations that really on taking out cost and improving efficiency. By focusing on the operations that really have the biggest impact on your customer experience.
Sure. Okay, thank you for that, John. Let's keep clipping through the content. So the third point of the 5, we've looked at the levels of transformation already and what's driving the need for these programs. We just did that, right? Let's look at the challenges business face now as they begin their journey. And our research, and we looked at really finding out what was the greatest barriers, if you like. And the biggest barrier that was reported was one of complexity. So 53% cite the inflexibility of their existing systems as a top barrier to change. And 51% cite time delays as the primary barrier, i.e. moving forward simply takes too long. And overall, 70% agree that it's internal complexity that most gets in the way of transformation. So what we're seeing here is a severe limitation that large businesses especially face when trying to transform. And this limitation, it isn't really felt as much by new players, of course, especially new digital players entering markets and disrupting their business models. The reality is that when big businesses try to transform, the results are not always, of course, as we've spoken about, what they need. They're not achieving their goals. So what else is holding business back? Well, a few moments ago, we saw that many state time delays as a challenge in digital transformation. According to our research, these time delays are caused not only by complex technology or complications of the technology, but also by cultural complexity. 51% of the respondents believe that their organization is either resistant to or has mixed views about transformation and change. This is true even for businesses well on their way to achieving digital transformation, which is interesting. So this survey shows that businesses with high levels of transformation underway are no more or less likely to be resistant to change than those yet to embark upon meaningful change programs. So this risk needs managing even when good velocity has been reached for transformation, and the risk will never go away. And this slide really is designed to help you take that and think about how those areas, the areas we've been talking about, are affecting your own organization. And it poses important questions in 3 key areas of successful transformation programs. Number 1, have you really understood and in fact communicated the core drivers of transformation? What's really driving transformation? And number 2, is your business really prepared to undergo change and change fast? And thirdly, can your infrastructure make it happen, or will you be constrained by legacy IT? So that last slide, which I've moved on from, might have inspired you to start thinking about the biggest challenges you face in your transformation programs. So let's stay on that thought just for one more slide with this question. It's another question to you, the audience, of course. So get ready to vote. Which of the 4 you can see is your biggest barrier to achieving your digital transformation goals? Is it A, inflexible legacy technologies, B, limitations on time and budget, C, are you experiencing a kind of real cultural resistance within the company to change in this area? Or D, is it essentially a lack of effective, productive collaboration, often between IT and business? So, again, is it A, inflexible technology, B, limitations on budget and time given, C, cultural resistance, or D, effective collaboration between IT and business? And if I just look at my other laptop for the results here, just moving, and hopefully the audience can see as they're moving. So we have 2 head-to-head answers here. I think, well, there you go. I think that comes out. Maybe I've swayed you a little bit, I think, there with the answers, but certainly it chimes with what we found, right? So the typical very real constraints of the legacy IT landscape within an enterprise, especially an incumbent industry-leading enterprise. And that's often exasperated by the fact that the last 10, 15, maybe more years have seen IT organizations kind of, should we say, outsource and certainly try and squeeze costs down, and therefore may lose talent and flexibility within their IT organization. And the second winner, or the joint winner, again, was cultural resistance, which is is definitely a problem, and a problem which we see, again, exasperated by perhaps a lack of clear direction and strategy, and a leakage in execution when it comes from taking a high-level strategy down to the operational layer as well, and that often causes resistance to increase. John, any surprises here? Any thoughts?
Well, it's kind of, it's a little disappointing to see these because we hope to make we're making more progress. A couple of comments on the one of the agility traps, John, is
sure.
Everybody will stand up and salute to the goal of customer first. Nobody's gonna argue with that. But then when it comes time to set metrics, to set priorities, et cetera, you default back to the old ways of doing things, which are really aimed at stomping out change. Change is the enemy. Change causes instability. Change causes uncertainty, and so the cultural change oftentimes is not. It's not the humans who are the people who are resistant here. They'd love to do better, but their metrics and the practical culture that they live within actually prevents them from doing that. This is a real trap.
Yeah.
And then inflexible legacy technologies is just this is why it's so important to try to free up budget, because that just does take time and money. And again, prioritize on the most important technologies that are the technologies that are most important to your customer experiences is the way to really make progress there.
Sure. That's great. And on your first point, for sure. I mean, I was having a conversation relatively recently with a customer who was talking about what you just mentioned there, which is how do you establish a culture of, rapid, risk-free experimentation and ideation, and the ability to try things with limited, certainly rapidly and in a way which, things may, some things will work, some things may not work, but being able to empower with technology normally, but also with a mindset and with a culture, the ability to, rapidly experiment and co-create new operating models and new business models, I think is a necessity for incumbents to be successful, right? So.
By the way, it will not be risk-free. Part of the challenge here is tolerating a greater level of risk.
Sure. That's a great point. Okay, let's keep clipping through. So number 5 here. We move now really to focus on a set of 4 transformation factors. We're summing up now the research, this high-level walk through the research. And these 4 transformation factors that encapsulate the challenges business face when going through transformation, digital transformation. What we've essentially found is that to be successful, you need to turn a potential agility trap, like the ones we've highlighted, into what we'll call an ignition switch for change. And that this should be the primary benefit of having tackled the issues described in this research, the ones I've covered and the ones that are in the actual written report. And we believe that transformation success should be based on the following 4 principles, and I'll be quick. Firstly, really by understanding the drivers for change in your business, top left of this slide, you create the ignition switch of strategic clarity. There's no single driver of digital transformation. For any large organization, the rationale for investing in change will be influenced by many internal and external issues. So, for example, is it customer-driven? Is it cost savings or competition the real reason for the change? But there is a need to clearly define and prioritize the causes for change, and to base something as pervasive and strategic as digital transformation on a general sense of competitive pressure, for example, that will present obstacles in the implementation of any enterprise-wide project. The second thing on the slide you can see is identifying the risk factors that influence success demands a responsive process in your business. So there are many risks and complexities. It's impossible to mitigate all of them. Therefore, the operational processes supporting transformation, they need to be responsive, and responsive as the evolution of the program itself changes shape along the way. This is going to be a constant if you like, program a change. So you need to make sure your processes internally are responsive to that change. Third, business alignment. Digital transformation brings the worlds of business and technology together in new ways. I think collaboration across traditional silos needs to be encouraged, of course, from the ideation stage onwards. So how do we get together to ideate new operating models and business models? The right environment must be created to provide a balance of, I guess, control as well as autonomy to knowledge workers and IT leaders in order to affect business change as quickly as they need to do. So let's think about that for a second. Do you have an army of can-do process pioneers right now in your company to make change happen? And finally, number 4, the use of wrapper technologies. We believe that digital transformation can only be achieved rapidly with the right technology in place. And we describe our own platform actually as a wrapper for IT infrastructure and transformational needs. ERP systems are not easily replaced or transformed. The potential running of kind of a 2-speed IT organization can develop in, so that time-sensitive transformation can develop in isolation of the slower-paced infrastructure. I mean, that can be hard for many businesses. So for you on the call, as you embark on this, I think it's essential to think about how much of your transformation strategy requires an infrastructure rethink. So just as I start to conclude and pass over to John, we do get a lot of feedback in webinars from audience members who want to understand a little bit more about what we do and what the technology we offer, how it enables some of the solutions we just touched upon in the research. And I'll do that really quickly. Let's have a quick look at Bizagi solutions and how they really map to the ignition switches we just mentioned. So in 2 or 3 minutes, Bizagi's digital business platform wraps around legacy systems and data repositories to provide a digital process layer that allows business and IT teams to co-create digital operating models. And they do that by modeling, building, and running process applications from a single core platform. And I'll try and give you a 1,000-feet overview of how that actually works. Starting with process modeling. So in Bizagi, the process is the application. And this diagram shows how processes are ideated using industry standard nomenclature that allows teams to illustrate the logic of their business processes in a way that is understandable both by IT and the business. Bizagi allows you to create the required data model for the application that you've just modeled. Again, via a simple drag and drop UI, teams can visualize all the different entities that interact with the process via a familiar relational entity map. And next, the behavior and design of the application's user interface is created. And these forms are created through a WYSIWYG drag and drop editor, as you can see, that allows teams of business and IT to collaborate on the forms that the users will see and use to perform their work. Next, sophisticated business rules can be created to route the process flows or to offer next best actions to the user based on complex calculations and validations of data and context of the data within a specific process step. Just walking around this slide, as you can see, walking around the different components of the solution. And next, it's about connecting the application with external systems. Bizagi provides a strong set of integration components out of the box that allow you to connect to the most common external systems. Or instead, to use a simple connector wizard to build custom integration points with very limited coding required. And with Bizagi, the next step then can be to create incredibly tailored assignment rules and logic, allowing you to map different organizations, different areas, roles, and skills that ensures the right performer is selected for each specific task in the process, depending on data, depending on context. And next we see the experience designer, and this is a relatively new area of the solution. It helps the customer to design the way their knowledge workers interact with the platform and the applications created. Knowledge workers, as you know, do not always work with simple structured processes. Instead, their needs revolve around the data and the context of any activity. So the platform must allow you to define the information that your knowledge workers can search, see, and interact with, and to tailor their experiences so they're prompted only with the information that is relevant at any specific moment. So we're talking here about contextualized, personalized experience for the knowledge workers, knitting together structured, unstructured, and ad hoc processes based on what they need to do next in the process. the use of context. And finally, we have Bizagi Analytics, of course, not only allowing you to get or to set individual process performance indicators and real-time forensic analysis across your processes, but also allows you to see the timeline and interdependencies of all the actions that were activated by a specific case or a specific process in the application. So that was an extremely quick walkthrough of the building blocks of a solution, how the solution walks the user through the creation of process-centric applications. Whistle-stop tour. But before I hand over to John, indulge me, because I'd like to give you one example of how this platform is actually used in the real world to power real digital transformation programs. And we'll do that very quickly by looking at one of our customers, Old Mutual PLC. Old Mutual is an international investment, savings, insurance, and banking group with more than 16 million customers and I think over 300 billion pounds sterling assets under management. It's a member of the FTSE 100 index. This slide tries to summarize the problem Old Mutual faced, in that a customer journey, no matter where it started, for example from a browser or via a call into their call center, would involve multiple steps, multiple touch points within the enterprise, many of which were never seen or felt by the customer, of course, but all of which had a role in defining that customer's overall experience. At Old Mutual, all those systems, their data sources, their processes were initially disconnected, isolated, siloed from each other. And this complexity saw a situation characterized by having over 10,000 business rules applied across over 500 products that were sold and serviced to the customer. Customer portfolios were fragmented across 11 different systems. There's no single view. Over 1,000 processes were offered to the employees to select from when servicing those customers, covering over 450 service forms. And wet signatures on physical documentation were needed for over 95% of transactions with the customer. So the end result, each customer touchpoint was fragmented, highly unsatisfactory, long queues at branches, for example, due to separate experts being required to service each individual financial product to the customer, and an extremely low customer satisfaction rating. So Old Mutual deployed Bizagi to wrap around this legacy landscape and provide a super fast, agile, digital process layer on which business teams and IT teams could come together and build a new digital operating model. An operating model that was very much more focused on providing a single digital customer experience and to shield customers and staff from complexity. So the results, customer service experience was distilled into 5 simple product lines. All of the rules I mentioned earlier were automated using data-driven processes, again across customer and employee-facing systems. They achieved a consolidated customer 360 portfolio view, and that was available for both employee and customer through the systems. And online pre-populated forms are rolled out for all high-volume transactions to remove the need for physical documentation. And the benefits of the program were compelling, and this is a great indicator about how these platforms, and I spoke previously about BPM heritage of the company, but how these platforms are being used for much broader digital transformation goals and very much goals which are centered on customer satisfaction and customer experience improvements. Net promoter scores improved by over 15%. First point of contact resolution improved by over 30%. And obviously there's huge amounts of cost savings associated with that. And interestingly, customer queuing times in branches reduced by a factor of 9 times because every member of the staff could, with the same expertise, service any customer over any product because of their access to information on one single system. So, as I hand over to John, I'd just like to conclude by inviting you to download a free copy of the Agility Track report. We're actually sending you a link to do that, to download that report. It's got much more information than the very high-level story I touched upon. You can also visit the homepage, bizagi.com, to access it if you're hungry to get that report downloaded now. With that, let me pass over to John.
Thank you, John. Thanks for inviting me to join this webinar. It's a very interesting study that you and Bizagi have done. I'm going to just make some brief, just go through some brief advice here that we've been giving to clients on how to change their software strategies to deliver the goods on digital transformation. In my world, the research that I do is all aimed at software delivery, mainly custom software delivery. And I find 100% of the time that the software strategies broadly are a big barrier to firms being able to achieve their goals. So I think that across industries, across all the clients we deal with, this is a big challenge. I start with this quote from a gentleman named Eric Pearson at Intercontinental Hotel Group, which I think is really just crystallizes what's going on out there. Those who are fast, who can adjust quickly and adjust to their customers' expectations. John, you called that out. The research calls that out. That customer expectations shifting very, very quickly can really trip companies up. Those who can respond quickly are not. The story is they now have an opportunity to beat slower companies, even if those companies are much, much larger. This is we hear this oftentimes with the digital upstarts, the Airbnbs and so forth, but we're starting to see it in other more broadly as well, not just in consumer businesses. And it makes sense. The pace of change in our markets, in these global markets that we all operate in, is just insane. And so really equipping yourself with a software strategy that allows you to react and to capitalize on opportunities you see, is really crucial to being competitive and success. So I start with this finding from one of our surveys. I've been in the technology industry for, as John mentioned, for 20 some years, and there's always been this theme of if we could only align business and IT, if we could only get a common understanding of what's needed from both of those communities, boy, life would be good. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've done it. This finding and other correlates to other things other findings we've been seeing. The IT community gets it. The IT community is I think that's really where the changes come. The IT community really has matured to the point where they do get it, and they see that they understand the business priorities. So we've achieved this, but now we have to actually put it into action. That's the problem. As I mentioned earlier, even if everyone can salute the same goals, then if we aren't actually executing and we aren't really aligned in our execution, then we will not actually achieve those goals as quickly as we need to. So in my experience, this ability to execute on this new alignment that we have, this wonderful alignment that we have, really calls for an appropriate software strategy. And the software strategy, John, all of your findings, the findings from your study, correlate to what we're seeing. The software strategy needs to tackle these cultural and technological and investment factors. So I break it down to four separate moves, four separate strategies, if you like. Prioritize your customer ecosystem applications. John, early on you mentioned the need to tackle both customer experience, which would be presented through a mobile app or a website, or perhaps a combination of a brick and mortar experience and the mobile apps. That prioritize that customer experience, but also the operational systems that enable that customer experience. This is really the news now. We've got lots of apps out there. We've got lots of interesting forms of digital engagement. What we haven't yet tackled is the operational systems behind that. And I'm going to show you an example in a minute. We call the whole of this, the customer experience plus the operations behind that customer experience, digital customer ecosystem applications, because it is an ecosystem and oftentimes involves both employees and partners and customers themselves. Secondly, industrialized software and or service delivery for speed and responsiveness. Industrialization means automate routinize, standardize, so that you can make change quickly. And John, to the point we were on earlier, reduce the risk of that change. And this will also free up, the automation can also free up budget to tackle projects. Prioritize customer insights, analytical apps, and services everywhere. Effective customer experience and evolving customer experiences really depend on an understanding of the situation customers are in and the situation you're in your market, the competitive dynamics, et cetera. This all comes down to data and analytics, and I think we're starting to see a real emphasis now on analytics to really meet this need, to inform processes, to inform experiences with context and real expertise. And then lastly, two governance moves that we have to all make as an industry. One is to adopt product management disciplines. And that's a big topic. I'm not going to talk in detail about that today. The second one is to adopt much more flexible financial governance. So let me just walk through these real quickly in a little bit of detail. Here's the point about customer experience ecosystems. Most people start with their mobile app, their web experience, their other digital channels that they use to interact with their customers, and there's some really great examples out there of companies that have really raised their game. I'm going to talk about Delta Airlines later. In our estimation, by the measures we use, Delta's done a great job in raising its customer experience, customer interaction game, using its mobile app, but the operations behind that app, behind these apps, are still largely very static and very difficult to change and get in the way. And so we're starting to see more companies push their investments into the operations as well. And again, we call the whole of this customer experience ecosystem. So when you invest when you think about it, I mentioned this earlier, when you think about it, new investments in your back office, prioritize those operational systems that really have an impact on your customer experience. That's the way to win and to really create good progress. Here's an example. I mentioned Delta earlier. Delta Comfort Plus is a program that Delta put into place to basically, a portion of the aircraft has seats with more legroom. It's that simple. Delta was behind some of the other carriers in delivering this. And in order to deliver this experience, it involved a whole set of changes. By the way, this was recently described in the Wall Street Journal. It required a whole set of changes to a range of operational systems. I call that reservations and customer service here, but others as well as configuring the airplanes, obviously, that drove them to make investments in new application platforms to get that flexibility. The customer experience was impossible without looking at the whole ecosystem. And increasingly, this is what we're seeing with clients, that they have to look at the whole. They can't just slap a mobile app on top of crufty and static old systems. All right, next, digital transformation demands fast delivery. One of the facts here that we're dealing with is as we've become more and more, as we've addressed more and more engaging and excellence and an inspiration with our customer experiences, we find that we need to be able to change the experiences really, really quickly. And from a software development perspective, this is really revolutionary. We've gone from delivery cycles of over a year to 2 to 4 months, and now we're getting into days where you may not deliver a whole application in a day, but you certainly have to deliver important changes to processes, business rules, policies, the appearance, of the and the experience of the application. So this is a huge challenge from a software perspective because software just takes time. The way that we're tackling this is that there's really two vectors that we see companies tackling this challenge. One is if they've got coders in Java or .NET or what have you, they're trying to optimize the world that those coders live in. So you'll see references to agile methods. DevOps is a process idea. Continuous integration, continuous delivery, another process idea that involves a lot of automation. And then microservices is a way of really structuring. It's a new way of architecting applications. So this is a track that people go down. It is the big issue here for most of our clients is, can they get the coders they need? A lot of them can. They just can't get the development talent that they need. And so many of them turn to the second vector, which is to adopt low-code platforms and change the way the software is actually delivered. So agile methods are part of the picture here because the low-code platforms support them so well. But we're not coding, or we're dramatically reducing the amount of coding and instead relying on visual development approaches. We call these declarative. They call it declarative tooling. Deployment is automated, so we're going very, very quickly to be able to create something, either a new app or a change. We can deploy that in moments, and oftentimes, get in market, but oftentimes actually test ideas as well. And then lastly, I mentioned reduced testing because the low-code environments are based on an automated framework. There's much, much less testing that you have to do before you roll out an application, and then again, that reduces time. Low code is I think a really profound opportunity for many, many organizations. Here's a slide that shows some of the results that we've seen in the ability of people to speed their application delivery when they deployed low-code platforms. I mean, I think these comparisons are just amazing. And you see, these are not sort of new digital consumer firms. These are insurance companies, a company operating a call center. And then the U.S. government with the Obamacare initiative. These are all substantial businesses with substantial lines of business, substantial numbers of customers, and they're deploying applications now in weeks, whereas before it took either years or months for them to deploy these applications, and then keeping pace with the change. The one that's marked infinity, by the way, represents one of the interesting opportunities here. This was an insurance firm that had this agent portal on its backlog for literally years and never got to it. It was always judged as being too complicated, and we'll do the low-hanging fruit. We'll do other projects first. It never came off the backlog. So that's another opportunity that some of the initiatives or some of the apps that you really need but have never been able to get off of IT's backlog, you can now tackle those given this new way of delivering code. A brief word on analytics. We just need more. When we're dealing with customers, we're dealing with real-time understanding of what's going on with our customers and our competitors in our markets. Most folks do not have the applications or the environments to deliver the goods. I'm not going to say a whole lot more about that, except that I think it's a priority that we all need to focus on a lot more. And then lastly, I just want to in the realm of governance and culture, one of the things we've got to tackle in managing our digital transformations is funding and budgeting. The short story here is that most budget cycles are annualized and they're based on fixed allocations, which doesn't cut it when you're in a digital transformation mode. You've got to have enough flexibility within your budget cycle to be able to make changes as you need to, and sometimes that's within a quarter, sometimes that's within a month. So what it comes down to is introducing some flexibility into these static, annualized budgeting processes so that business and IT can make the changes they need to in the apps they're delivering when they as needed, and not have to wait for a year and a new funding cycle. That's the short story. There's obviously a lot behind it, a lot more behind that. The slide shows some of the techniques we've seen people add in to increase their flexibility. And with that, John, we should go to questions, I would think.
Yeah, I think we have time. I know we're trying to finish probably in the next 5 minutes, guys. So I think we've got time for 2 more types of question. We've got time for a audience polling question, or an audience polling question, our final one of the day. Just waiting for the slides to change here. Let me just change it again.
It's stuck.
Maybe a little stuck because of the maybe the heavy black background on the Forrester slides. There, oh, here we go. Let me move back, guys, just to the polling question. Hang on there for 1 second. Here we go. So I think you should be able to see it now. So John, thank you for that, by the way. I mean, one final question, the audience. So let's get an understanding of how many of you are actually using the kind of technologies we touched upon and John touched upon in his presentation. So we'll give you a few seconds to answer this question, and I'll read it out. Does your business use low-code application development platforms today to build process-centric applications? So we're looking at the kind of level of adoption of these platforms today. So 3 options, A, B, and C. A, perhaps you've used low-code platforms for a few specific use cases in maybe one department and a couple of maybe burning processes, so very limited use. Number 2, or sorry, B, maybe use of these platforms is absolutely ingrained in your application delivery teams today, so wide use, broad adoption. C, have digital business platform like those discussed today not been adopted at all yet by your organization. So it's a little bit wrong sequenced here, but A is some use but very sparing. B is complete broad use within the enterprise, and C is, the third option is not adopted at all by your organization. So I will lean across to the other laptop here, and I can see that you have voted. It's clearly not yet. So at the moment, hopefully you're seeing what I'm seeing, which is no one believes they have full and comprehensive use of these solutions, which you know goes with our expectations, as in there is people at the early stages of adoption, should we say?
Yes, it does. That squares with what we see as well, John.
And final. Sorry, go ahead, John. You comment on the results. Everyone can see them. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just I think for low-code vendors, this is what would be described as a target-rich environment. We see this a lot where people will bring in the low-code platforms for individual use cases, and then the question is how can they deploy them as really strategic platforms? Because what our research says that these products, the majority of them, can be in fact be used as strategic platforms, and we do see some of that, but there's a lot more that could be can be done.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, great. Let me move on a little bit here, and I know I have only a few more minutes on this call with the audience with John. So let me. I'm stuttering slightly as I look towards the audience questions here. We've had a lot of questions come in. Thank you for that. I'm going to just pick a couple of them for John. First one is associated with low-code platforms. So John, can low-code platforms support large and complex application build needs?
Yes.
So,
yes, they can. We've done research on this. We've looked at this question really hard. There are many cases out there where low-code platforms have been used to support applications involving thousands of users, involving large data sets, involving complex applications. Those applications do require careful attention in the way that anything you do at scale requires careful attention to how you're structuring those apps and how you're using the low-code platform to deliver them. But we have not found, in fact, John, any serious limitations here.
Yeah, well, it certainly tallies with what we're seeing with our custom base, but of course we would say that. So it's very valuable to hear you as an independent kind of observer of the market concur with that. There's another question in here, very linked actually, maybe from the same questioner. Can I retrain my developers to use low-code platforms?
Well, you can, some of them. What we have found is that developers who identify themselves with a technology, they see themselves as an expert in a technology. So you got a lot of people that consider themselves Java experts or JavaScript and Node experts or iOS experts. Those folks will not. Don't waste your time trying to get them to use low-code platforms. They are technologists and they are wedded to their coding environments. That's how they really provide value. What you want to do is look for your developers who identify themselves as business problem solvers. They see themselves as experts in a particular business domain, whether that's claims management and insurance, an insurance domain, or whether it's financial trading or retail operations or what have you. Those folks identify themselves as problem solvers, and they see technology as a means to that end, and they will be much less resistant to the visual development techniques that low-code platforms rely on. So that's the best we've been able to come up with for sorting the development community, and so far it seems to be holding up.
Okay, great. And I was speaking to a couple of weeks ago to a client who is a major oil company and using our platform to actually as a digital hub, if you like, where they're building many processes, supporting many different things, some customer facing, some taking data feeds from actually field operations in order to kickstart maintenance projects or processes. And they've done incredible things, building an incredible number of very complex processes within their organization with a very small central team, a center of excellence, if you like, which is largely staffed by graduate talent and graduate talent on the analyst side, not on the IT side. So, yeah, I can see different skills being used by different companies to build these digital platforms. It's 3 minutes to the hour. I'm going to because I know John has a hard stop at 1, and I'm going to be conscious of people's time on the call as well. So thank you guys for submitting questions. Great questions there. We're going to respond to the ones that we didn't get to on this call by replying to you in the days after the webinar. So let us collate those and come back out to you. Let me thank John for your content today, John. Fantastic as ever, and also for the audience to hang in there for the hour with us. There's been some great attendance, and you've stayed the course, so thank you for that. We hope the session was of value to all of you. Just one final note. There's a wealth of useful information at bizagi.com, and I really would encourage you to go and review the information there that you can access, such as how to join our next live demonstration, where you can really see the product or the platform being used, and you can access live Q&A with an expert. You can actually download the solution for free in terms of test and development instance there. So you can, of course, get your hands on this solution and start to play and see what opportunity this type of platform could deliver to your organization. And of course, a host of webinars, white papers, and most importantly, I think, customer case stories. So you can really see how companies have taken those first steps, because as everyone on the calls knows, there's a huge opportunity here, but there's also a lot of, should we say, a lack of confidence about the first steps to take. And I think you'll find a host of real-world examples on our website as to companies that took those first steps and are reaping the rewards of doing so. So, with that, we've almost hit the hour. John, thank you again. Thank you to the audience, and have a wonderful rest of your days or evenings, and a good rest of the week. Thank you.